What's up, guys? I am Caleb Giddings,
I'm Keith.
And I'm Jack.
and we're back. And we're sorry about the week that we took off from the podcast. Which it was funny. The 1 week we took off from the podcast, I was at a match Sunday morning, and one of the guys in my squad was like, "Hey, how come an episode didn't come out today?" It's like I listen to it every Sunday morning, and I was like,
Of all the times,
right.
I see the stats every day on it, and I'm still not convinced anyone actually listens to it. And then our friends and people we know are like, "Hey, the next episode," and I'm still like, "You aren't real."
Like you're not.
I have people that are like, great episode this week. I'm like, you're like a bird.
Birds are not real. Birds are not real, and neither is that girl on TikTok who appears to be in the army. Guys, that is a DoD psyop. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. Dude, she got Roy. She got Weapon Outfitters. I was like, oh no, he's been taken. And that is a reference that like 5% of our listeners will get, if that.
Five
Paige,
of our
if you're
listeners
listening, I love what you do. Keep doing it.
Yeah. All right. So this week, guys, we'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors for sponsoring the thing. And you can watch a lovely banner of that go by as I wave my hand, and it will absolutely not slate in a way that makes sense with the gesture that I just made with my hand. Trust me on that one, because I'm the one who does it. All right, so this week we have a fun topic.
Like boil out of Caleb's nose with one of those little.
If I had the at
Word
all
artifacts.
desire to edit that in a way that was, I don't. I just do a cut, insert, cut, done. Anyway, this week we have an interesting topic, and it was something that I was thinking about because at said aforementioned match, I had an absolute thermonuclear gun meltdown, which resulted in me screaming a stream of obscenities at my gun and mostly my ammunition. And the range officer who was running me on that stage sells these patches. And if you're just listening to this, it's a picture of a dumpster fire.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a picture of a dumpster fire, and it says stage plan on it. And he sells them. And after my stage at this match, he felt so bad for me. He was like, "You can just take one of those." And I was like, okay. So this episode, we are talking about embarrassing class or match stories, like things that you've done or seen. And for this one, also, please feel free to post your stories in the comment section on YouTube. Email them to us at whatever email address you happen to find. Send us a carrier pigeon, even though birds aren't real.
That makes the carrier pigeons more useful, though, because they're actually drones. They actually get to the destination. A bird wouldn't do that. It's a wild animal.
That was the first instance of birds not being real, right? It was when they used them as carrier pigeons.
That was our first confirmation. Like, I bet we can use these wild animals. Why would you assume that at all?
Did you guys see that there was a birds aren't real convention, by the way? Because Jack and I were talking before the episode started about things we've seen on TikTok, and I saw that there was a birds aren't real convention on TikTok, and I'm like, the internet is sometimes a mistake, but also sometimes when it allows enough crazy people to gather together in a benign, harmless way.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're gonna be crazy, you better be like comfy crazy. You better not sketch me out.
You have to have a fun crazy.
So I'll start with embarrassing stories. When I started shooting, I was a guns and AK. I was a Glock and AK guy, which what that meant in 2010. I started around 2007. What that meant then was that you were poor.
Like, yeah, it did.
You were broke. Because you could afford the Glock, which was like $450 at the time. If you got a police trade-in, I had a police trade-in 22. I got it for $299 after tax, and a Wasser that I bought for $350. So I was like dead broke. But instead of like saying we were broke, we were always like, no, we're about reliability. Our guns are going to run forever. Now I'm a 2011 and AR-15 guy because fuck you, I got money now.
Adult money fun.
I got adult money. But at the time,
I'm gonna vanish real quick.
Guys would talk about how they wouldn't like clean their guns forever and everything else, and this is what led to I would just never clean the gun, and I would always talk about like, oh, my AK shot like 8,000 rounds now without cleaning, and somewhere around 14 or 15,000 rounds without cleaning it. I was at a class, and I did the very cool AK reload at the time, which was hit the mag, take your magazine, smack out that old magazine, rock it in,
the good old sweep and
report, hit the charging handle, came all the way back, flew forward, bang, and that was my first ND. And I felt my whole body stop, and I was like, ooh. One, not into the backstop, well into the fucking stratosphere.
Just straight up into low
and
like
7.6 to us.
Oh God. So I'm like, in my head, I had my finger on the trigger. That was what my head just told me. Like I had messed up, put my finger on the trigger, and I had done something awful. Put my hand up, came off the line, talked to the instructor. The instructor was like, hey man, we got to pull you. I'm like, no, totally understandable. That's the thing. While this is happening, an instructor picks up my gun, puts it on safe, because he had asked me to, set it down, ground it, and we'll walk back to the end. And as he's walking with it, it goes off again.
www.yikes.com.
That is the biggest oof,
despite
sir.
whatever anybody tells you, when people tell you like AKs are one forever, that's not true. They beat the crap out of themselves. And if you're not paying attention to the internals on your gun, a very small little spring called a shepherd's hook in your AK is what prevents it from firing without any involvement from the trigger at all. And that thing had walked off its little pin into freedom land. And for God knows how long, I was walking around with the thing that would just detonate whenever it fucking felt like it.
Just, so I'm guessing the shepherd's hook like retains the firing pin on like the spring to keep it from just going like, doo-doo!
Yes, and like in the really
helps
cheap
control
versions,
the disconnector part of the trigger group.
Yeah, in the really cheap versions, it's just a wire spring. Tapco, RIP Tapco, real ones remember. Tapco made a plate that was $8 and 1,000 times better, and I immediately went out and bought one of those. And then I started a system in my head, which is after serious usage, like a big range day, I always tear the guns down, take a look at the internal parts, make sure they're in a working order, and then go forward with my day.
Tapco does not deserve and this might be nostalgia talking, but Tapco did not deserve the reputation that it got after a while. Like, did they make some really cheesy, low
they made some cheesy they made
parts?
some, as
sure.
the parlance of the day goes, they made some cringe parts,
but
they also made some absolutely fantastic parts that were not expensive, that just freaking worked. All the AKs used a Tapco G2 trigger and that plate, and they worked. My rifle dynamics came with a Tapco G2 trigger.
Let's be real. The Tapco SKS stock was not bad. The problems the problem with the SKS, with what people would do to those Yugo SKSs, is when they started to try to make them 30, 40 rounds. You stick with that internal 10-round magazine, you put the Tapco stock on it, which makes the gun a little bit more ergonomic. It's not terrible. And I find myself in a very strange place defending Tapco, because I guarantee if you go through my old blog and search through the archives, there's an entry in there where I say Crapco or something like that.
Because at the time,
we live and learn.
There were parts that didn't work. They had an AK folding stock that was guaranteed to fail.
Yes.
At the same time, they had the saw pistol grip, which before the time of Magpul, if you had a Tapco saw pistol grip on your gun, you were loving life.
And you were cool too. You were like way out on the edge of the smart guy curve.
Jack grip, which allowed you to put a rail for a light on an AK. Mm-hmm. That was we're talking light years before the Zukov from Magpul stuff. Like,
Do you guys?
just
I don't even know if they're still around. Do you remember, what was it, Ultimac or something that made the
Ultimac is
rails?
still around, still
Mhm.
doing business. When I was at my peak, I had a Bulgarian 74 with an Ultimac, a Microdot, a sawed off Tapco Galil handguard for the foregrip, because you had to cut off half of it to make it work. And a Tapco T6, which was the AR style butt pad.
Nice. You know, on the Ultimac, uh, fuck. Ultimac, you guys should probably call up Gat Daily about your website, because I think they might be able to help you with this, because this is
If I remember right, it hasn't changed since like 2007. Yep,
Yeah,
nope.
It's them.
Yep.
It's
This
them
is
and
100% the thing that
WRC.
I've
They put
ordered
something
from.
on the internet and it just exists now.
It's fantastic. But you know, those M1 carbine rails were really cool too. But that I also, it's funny that I have such a soft spot for the M1 carbine and don't actually own one. The last one that I came close to was Chiappa made that M1 carbine that took M9 mags, and I had one in the store that I was running, and it didn't work for shit, but man, it was cool. Like, it was super cool, which does not at all segue into my embarrassing gun story. But interestingly, mine's not from a class or a match. It's actually from a hunt that I was on, and we were on this big media hunt, right? And they've got they got media guys out there. It was sponsored by Smith and Wesson and Yamaha's Outdoors Group. So we had side by side UTVs that we were using to just bum around in the Wyoming plains, shooting prairie dogs and literally shooting anything but like big game, right? All of the small game that's legal to shoot, we were just lighting it up. And the Yamaha rep, a very nice guy, had been very insistent that everyone has to wear helmets and stuff like that. So of course, the minute that we're more than the minute we're out of eyesight, nobody's wearing helmets. But he was also very insistent about not using the vehicles as rests for shooting. And he was like, just don't do it, like da 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 da, no problem, right? So anyway, we pull up on this prairie dog town. I bail out with my M4, and what do? I use the vehicle as a rest, and I'm like, I'm nowhere near any part of the vehicle that could possibly be damaged by this. So whack, and I hear kind of like a ka-ting or twang almost, and I'm like, that was weird. I shoot a couple more rounds. And what I realized, so these don't have windshields, but they have like a plexiglass strip across the front, kind of around eye level. And I suddenly look at the plexiglass strip and realize that it's creased in multiple places from 5.56, just glancing off of it, never penetrating. It didn't go through, but I probably shot like 5 rounds that all glanced off this plexiglass visor and creased the piss out of it. I mean, completely destroyed it. And of course, that then makes me the dumbass gun writer who's got to go back and explain to the guy. So this,
That thing you told me
$20,000
not to do?
kit. The thing you told me not to do to your $20,000 UTV that you loaned us for this event. I did the thing, and I broke your toy. I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm fortunate that I didn't actually shoot a hole in it. And I didn't like puncture body work or anything like that. But it was just one of those moments where you go your whole career and you're trying to not be that guy. And in that moment, I fully was cognizant of the fact that, oh yeah, today I am that fucking
Today
guy.
I am that guy.
I was that guy.
I have had that guy moment. That was maintenance. Fun maintenance. So my embarrassing story will be a two-parter. It starts with me and then it goes to another guy because it was really fun. So my embarrassing story starts with the maintenance of the X95 bullpup, where I broke the part. I was explicitly told, hey, if you don't do this in the right order, you will break this part. I'm like, I must experience this for real. And so I did. So taking apart that rifle and switching out parts in it, you are supposed to, because I wanted to install a new trigger pack, you're supposed to pull the charging handle clear, because if you don't, the barrel lock will crunch that and your gas cylinder up and the rifle no worky no more.
Rifle no worky.
And so I immediately go to take everything apart, and then I release the barrel lock and I hear crunch and I go, I've done the thing.
I've done the thing.
And that was right before we were going to do Tavor operator class. I think it was a level 1 class. And I'm really excited because I just got this gun. I haven't shot it yet. I immediately break it, and I break it so bad I can no longer change the parts back. So I had to mail it back to Pennsylvania. Yes. And I'm like, I hope it gets done before class, because otherwise I'm running another class with a rifle that isn't mine, but this time it's because I broke it.
You see what happened was.
So it comes back. I'm feeling embarrassed, but like, I got my toy finally, everything's installed, everything's working, and we start spinning up for class. And this one guy just comes in and he's got the rifle wrapped up in a towel. And I'm like, that's an odd way to bring in a rifle for class. That's an interesting choice. Did you not have a case? I understand the box is really big and awkward, but did you not have a case? And he goes, oh no, it wouldn't fit in my Porsche. And we go, funny. No, seriously. And he goes, no, it wouldn't fit in my Porsche. So we all wander outside, and sure enough, he's got a tiny Porsche with the tiny freaking trunks that come on Porsches parked at this class.
They're called a frunk because they're
a frunk. And sure enough, this thing only had space for that rifle wrapped in a towel and no other accessories. There wasn't an optic on this thing. There were no magazines with it. And he's just like, yep, I'm going to roll in like a baller to this class with my Porsche.
I mean,
and bring out my rifle and my bath towel.
Good car. Poor class choice. That reminds me though, I love when I was running a gun store, my favorite customers were the ones who were very self-aware when they brought a bag of gun parts into the store and be like, I tried to do this in my house and it is not. And then they just sort of like abashedly hand over
they do the little head bow parts. And they're just like, I am not worthy.
Yeah. I tried to do something at home and I didn't do a good job. It's like, yeah, clearly.
I had those. I had one who I argued with this old guy for probably about 30 minutes that he'd lost parts in the back of his receiver because he was going from an adjustable stock on an AR, like everybody runs in the last 20 years, back to a fixed A2 stock for some reason. And he had all the little springs fire out the back of the receiver, and therefore his rear retention pin didn't stay in anymore. And he's like, no, I didn't. And I pull the pin out and I'm like, yes, you did. And he goes, no, I didn't. I'm like, this wouldn't happen if you had left it alone, sir.
There is a specific failure mode that induces this. It doesn't happen other ways.
Oh, speaking of Tapco again and the saw pistol grip, I, like Jack, was once a poor boy from a poor family. And I put the saw grip on my original Arsenal that I got for $5.99 back in like 2009. I had an SGL 20 that I got for $5.99, and I'm like, this is it. This will be my one rifle that I will ever have, probably, just because I don't know what my income perspectives are looking like in the future. And so I will have this $600 AK, and it will last for all the evers, and it will be fine. And I just remember the saw grip being very, very comfortable and thinking I had made it. This was great. Going up from here can go in increments, but it's probably not going to skyrocket. And in contrast to that thought of many years ago, I got these delivered today. So
for our audio only listeners, that was Keith's got dual tubes. So
it turns out my income perspectives were not as fixed as I thought.
Weird. How fun. Oh man, one more embarrassing story, and this one's a personal one. So I'm teaching an M4 class, a military class, and I'm talking about, how there's always one guy in class who forgets to put the buffer spring and buffer back in their gun when they put it back together, and then grabs the charging handle and launches their bolt into the stock. And I'm like,
It's
there's always this one guy. And then I was the guy in my own class
it's such a
after
unique
doing it.
sound and feeling.
And
She's
it's
like,
just,
"Conk."
and you just immediately go, God damn it. Because you know what happened. And you're just standing there and you're like, welp, that was my day. And that one is a me one.
I did one similar, but it was I forgot to put the plug in the back of the bulk carrier group for my law tactical.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, shiga, click, shiga, click. Why are you not shiga, click? Why are you not feeding? Why are you not going? This is fine. We're good.
We're good.
It's
saw
fine.
nothing.
Don't ask questions. I remember this was when I was taking my armorer's course many moons ago. When I signed on for the Army, and 2.5 years into a 3-year contract, they finally sent me to my new MOS school. I'm like, you guys are efficient. So I go out to the armorer's course, and we start taking apart guns that I've been playing with for many years at this point, and we get to the Knights 110 SAS, and I'm like, I know the inside of a SAS. I've had the SAS in my office, taken it completely apart, put it back together. So I just start and the instructor is telling us about it. I'm like, aha, I live next to operation parts. I've played with Knight stuff before. I take it all apart, everything's spread out, and I'm well ahead of everyone else who's paying attention like they should be. Because then he gets to the point where he's like, hey, and this part in the trigger, we don't touch this. We are contractually obligated not to touch this. This is a go back to Florida repair if we touch that. And I'm like, that's sitting on my desk.
You're like,
and by not touch
this, you mean...
So I slowly grab a couple of pins and maybe a disconnector, and I'm like... And then a few minutes later, they're like, there's really no reason why we can't touch this. It's just in the contract that we don't touch that, they touch that, so don't do that. I'm like, oh, okay. So
yeah, you know why that's in the contract? So they can make some money.
All right, guys. Well, for the listeners out there, please share your stories of when you were that guy. And like I said, let us know in the comments when you were that guy, your fun stories, if you knew that guy, if you saw that guy, stuff like that. We want to thank everybody
especially guys, if you were that guy, because those are the best learning stories.
Yeah, they really are. We want to thank everybody for listening on YouTube, on the Apple Podcasts, iTunes, all of those feeds. Make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing, doing all of that fun stuff to help grow the show. And we will be back next week with another episode.